Anybody who hasn't heard about auto-enrolment over the last couple of years has done pretty well, I think. The TV adverts, radio adverts, newspapers, billboards all over the place, and also various documents through the post to employers. It is hugely important that employers appreciate their obligation to provide pensions and various other bits and pieces to their employees. I say employees, Tim, it's not even as simple as that, is it? It's workers and job holders and all sorts.
Yes, the definition of those for whom an employer has to provide a workplace pension is itself quite a complicated area, but for most businesses it'll be relatively straightforward. We have a couple of companies with small payrolls. We know who's on the payroll. One of our companies has already implemented a workplace pension. The other one has its staging date next year, which brings me to the first point. This is a staggered introduction. Some of those watching this will already have staged, as the expression puts it. Others will not. And for those that have not yet implemented auto-enrolment, what do they need to do? Well, first they need to talk to their professional advisors. There is a variety of different ways of arranging this. You can do it yourself. It's quite complicated. There are some government-sponsored providers. An independent financial advisor can help, but very often it will be the business's main business advisor, accountant, tax advisor, who's going to help with this. But there are two key areas that we should, I think, put across. One is the administrative side of it, which is not to be underestimated, and the changes to payroll procedures, the actual staging and going through all of the documentation with the pensions regulator, all of that is important. But then the other side of it is the cost, and initially at least the cost is relatively low. Employers will be contributing 1% of the relevant earnings, and that in itself is a complicated calculation, and the employee an additional 1%. But from April 2018, the employer's contribution goes up to 2%, the employee's up to 3%, so a total contribution of 5%. And then from April 19, the employer's contribution will go up to 3% of earnings, and the employee's 5%, a total of 8%. But for some employers, that is a fairly significant increase in payroll cost, an extra 3% eventually. And of course, that ties into salary increases, HR departments generally.
Because working out how much you have to pay the person and whether they qualify, whether they are a relevant job holder and all this sort of thing is part one of the problem. And certainly if you have very seasonal staff, if you have a lot of staff turnover, then it can be quite complicated to look at who is going to be involved, who has to be involved, are they involved every week, all that sort of thing. If you have 2 or 3 people who earn the same amount every month and nothing really changes over 20 years, shouldn't be too much admin there. But having done that, having got those people onto the regime, as you say, the ongoing costs, irrespective of the HR and payroll costs, will be quite sizable for some businesses. And advice there with your professional advisor will be needed in terms of, well, we were going to do pay reviews next year, but actually if we've got to put in another 3% on top already, we have to factor all of this in.
Yes, I think given recent history in terms of pay reviews with many, many businesses not really giving any significant pay rises for quite a number of years now, the additional 3% will be viewed by employers as a surrogate pay rise, and employees themselves need to realise that, and at the same time employees will be suffering an increased deduction from their salary. So quite a lot to communicate to staff, and I think most employers will want to outsource this to their advisors, and that's where a firm like Rothmans is going to be able to use their experience, because they've already had quite a large number of clients who've reached their staging date and they've got the experience behind them. They'll be able to advise on what the best package is, depending on the size of business, number of employees, etc.
I heard a wonderful myth the other day, which was, yes, but nobody's getting fined, there's going to be no penalties if you don't do this. Well, I heard of a business the other day, fewer than 50 employees, so not a huge business by any stretch, and the penalty that they had been allocated was, I think it was just over £25,000 penalty for failure to act as far as auto-enrolment. These are very big numbers, and you have to make sure you do it.
That does not surprise me. And yes, the pensions regulator, the PRO, Pension Regulator's Office, has teeth and is bearing them.
Very important that as an employer you consider your obligations, you make sure that you have ticked the various boxes. And remember, your staging date might not be for another year, but that doesn't stop you doing all of the paperwork and admin now. You can get everything sorted in a quieter time rather than waiting to the very last minute. Do speak to your advisor, whether that's a financial advisor or your accountant, whoever it may be. Do get in touch with them, speak to the guys at Rothmans. I'm sure they'll be able to help you.